We've got some big news, some breaking news out of Major League Baseball where the Cleveland Indians will officially be changing their name to the Cleveland Guardians. Let's show you a tweet that the social media team had put out just this morning. It said, "Together we are all Guardians." It's about a 2-minute, 10-second video narrated by Tom Hanks, and the Black Keys are also involved. A change coming after years of pressure to move away from the Native American imagery. It is the first time Cleveland has changed their nickname since going from the Naps to the Indians in 1915. Also links to the Spiders as well. And over on the football side, the Washington football team also changed their name in 2020 to move away from Native American imagery. All right, to help us make sense of the breaking news, we've got David Samson, the host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. David, what do you think?
I think that if you look really quickly, if we put that picture back up, Tully, if you look really quickly, it looks like Indians. Do you see the Dians? So instead of in, it's now Gar. And it looks like similar font. The G is sort of strange. I can't figure out the wings, but we can talk about that later. So maybe they were trying to get as close to the image they had while saying, hey, we can respect the past, but we are moving forward into a new era. And of course, anytime you can get Tom Hanks, you're doing something right. But seriously, just squint your eyes a little bit, look super quickly, and it really looks like Indian still, doesn't it?
I think you're right. I did not notice that at first glance. I do believe we have the second logo, and there's going to be 4 total. There's one with the baseball with the wing and the G's. It actually is old, like the California Angels with the A and the wings. But David, take us through what it takes to go through a change like this.
So it takes lawyers and it takes designers. MLB will give you a group of designers. You can use an outside firm as well, but you have to do it in conjunction with the licensing department within Major League Baseball. And you start coming up with ideas of names and ideas of what logos would be, and then colors. And then once you decide on something, and of course, Paul Dolan claimed he used focus groups and he spoke to people in the community and he did all those things. All of that was simply eyewash, doing that so you can get buy-in from your community. I'm trying to think who came up with Guardians, right? I assume it's what the Dolan family wanted. They own the team. It's their right. So once you know you're the Guardians, then you start designing your logo. And you come up with about 10 or 12 different possibilities for what's called your primary logo. Once you come up with a primary logo, then the lawyers get to work, and they've got to make sure that there's no copyright issues. And then you get the ownership of that logo. Then you come up with secondary logos. And that's another 10 or 20 that you then choose 2 or 3 from. Then you start doing uniform designs. Then you start doing Pantone colors in the uniforms, printing the uniforms to see what they look like, getting examples of the uniforms, saying that doesn't look good, that looks good, that doesn't. And then at the end, you get everything approved, including the uniforms. And then you start with all the licensing, the shirts, the hats, the jerseys that are going to be in your team store. Then you start planning how you're going to roll it out. And I guess you call Tom Hanks and say, give me 2 minutes of your time because we are now the Cleveland Guardians. Hip, hip, hooray.
We saw there in the video, Guardians with wings, part of the fabric of Cleveland there with some of the statues, David. So you sort of took us through the business side of things, the legal side of things. What about, as a front office executive, the fandom, the emotion? Because change is never easy, so there will be plenty of people that don't like the change of the name and the name of the Guardians and so forth. From a PR marketing perspective, what comes next?
What comes next is you must ignore all social media because the loudest people on social media are the naysayers who don't like change, and you will freak out. When the Marlins changed to the Miami Marlins and the logo got leaked, our owner and I had a moment of panic because everyone was despondent beyond repair. This is the ugliest multicolored logo ever that we thought about changing it. Of course, we couldn't. We didn't have time. But it makes you feel badly because of all the work you put in. So if you are the Cleveland Guardians, you close out your social media, you ignore it all, and you press forward with a great party where you can unveil uniforms and you get your players there, your good young players, and you do an entire unveiling party. You may get Pitbull or someone like that if you're in Miami. If you're in Cleveland, you could do it at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you just press forward with excitement, but ignore the hate.
David, what do you make about the timing of this announcement?
Very bizarre to me. That's what struck me. When I got the call from Quinny that we had to go live on the queue, I assumed it was for a trade. And then when I found that Cleveland was announcing they're the Guardians, I think the only explanation is that they were worried that there was going to be a leak and they wanted to control the unveil of their name. Because when you have a name, as I said in the beginning of this segment, there's a lot of people who know about the Guardians because things are being made, like uniforms and hats and shirts, et cetera, et cetera. So they wanted to get ahead of it. But with the trade deadline coming, with their season not going that great, so far behind the White Sox, having just traded Lindor, I would have tried to wait until after the season, because right now there's some negativity about what you're doing on the field. I'd rather do an entire brand new start and do an off-season launch.
David, you are a big movie buff. When we take a look at the Cleveland Indians, they have been linked, of course, through some Hollywood things like Major League. How should pieces like this in time, movies like Major League, be remembered moving forward?
Well, I think I just heard a rumor that they are changing the original Major League and they're going to Photoshop away Chief Wahoo, and they got rid of the people in the outfield who were banging on the drums, and there's nobody in feathers or stripes, and they're going to change the logos to the G with the stripes. Come on, TT. How many things in our past do we look back and say, oh, that needs to be fixed? So then it gets fixed. But you don't go back and change. There's an entire committee which talks about these things. When do you rename certain buildings or take down certain statues, et cetera? But that's a movie. The Cleveland Indians existed as a franchise. Progress has been made. The name has rightfully been changed to the Cleveland Guardians. But Major League will continue to be a top 5 all-time baseball movie.
Seeing a change there in Major League Baseball. Of course, we know there's a change coming with the NFL and the Washington football team, formerly the Washington Redskins. They are going through similar things, taking a longer time to officially come up with a name. It might stick with WFT. People certainly enjoy that. But what do you think about the situation with Dan Snyder out in our nation's capital?
I think what Dan Snyder's trying to do is wait as long as possible because there's so much negativity around his franchise, especially with the report that just came out and all of the sexual harassment issues, everything negative that's happened with the Washington football team, that he wants some space. And trust me, it's a wait to see on Nothing Personal, TT. The name will not be the Washington football team. They will have a nickname. They will have new uniforms, but it's going to take a little more time because Dan Snyder, having just stepped away and hired his wife Tanya to run the team, believes that now all is forgotten and forgiven, but they're going to wait just a little bit longer.
Lastly, David, before I let you go, taking a look at the U.S. and North American landscape, are we done yet? Do we anticipate any more changes in your eyes?
I don't think you can ever say we're done. Because in this era, what happens now is you don't realize some things that are offensive to some that you don't think are offensive, that used to not be offensive, that are now offensive. So I would never tell you that we're done, because as a society, we're always evolving, and everybody needs to look in the mirror and see if they're doing something that used to be okay and now not so much.
So does that mean the Braves perhaps on deck?
Listen, the fact that there is still that sort of cheer, that as a Marlins and Expos, my whole career, 18 years listening to the Tomahawk Chop, it drove me crazy. Forget the insensitivity of it. It just meant that I was about to lose a game. No doubt about it. But I think the Braves have to be aware that needs to be gotten rid of and that needs to change. You've got college teams with names that in theory could be offensive. I do not think we're at the end of change by any stretch.
All right, could be the Braves, the Florida State Seminoles, the Chicago Blackhawks. So still a lot to talk about, but thanks for breaking it down, David Samson, of course, with the new name for the Cleveland baseball team, the Guardians. Who knows? They could be the Guardians of Cleveland baseball's galaxy. David, certainly appreciate it. Check out his show, Nothing Personal, with David Samson. I'm sure this will be a topic of conversation, perhaps even an emergency pod. David does a tremendous job. Again, 15 years with the Marlins, another 3 years with the Expos, a total of 18 years as president of a baseball team with insight like few others here in our industry. Download and follow today.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.